good to be alive in this land of ours. Good to drive in this land of ours.
Hello, Canadian hockey fans in the United States.
Two levels below the NHL, so it's pretty special to me, and I just got to take advantage of it and do everything I can in my power to get the job done right.
Welcome to the Hockey Time Machine. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs fan. I'll be your host this evening. Tonight we'll be discussing an interesting documentary that I think you'll find very inspirational. It's a film by Ryan Maines called Relentless. Let's start with the star of the film, Kevin Porter. For those of you who don't know Kevin and are on social media, I can't believe you haven't seen one of his on-ice workout videos. He's a paramedic and firefighter by trade, but like every kid growing up in Canada, has a dream to play professional hockey. Well, what's so unusual about that, you ask? Well, first off, Kev's 44 for starters. So Kevin, welcome to the Hockey Time Machine. Now, let me ask you, did you run a couple miles before you came on the air tonight? And have you got a crunch set you're going to be doing between questions, or what's the story?
No, Mike, I'm tapped out. I will start the podcast off by correcting you. I'm 46, but that's
46 years old.
It's only 2 years. Anyways, I just want to start off on the right foot. I'm detail orientated. So this morning, we're at the Ford Performance Center at 7 a.m. We had an hour and 15-minute practice. And then I was at the gym this afternoon for a workout. So yeah, the day is done as far as training goes, and just happy to be here to join you guys.
Fantastic. Well, also, I've listen, not a good start for me, 44, 46. Well, you know what? It's a couple of years, it's all okay. Also on the panel, the man who saw something in Kevin and decided to capture his dream on film. And we're going to find out why. Please welcome Ryan Maines. Ryan, thanks for joining us. By the way, is camera rolling tonight?
No. Well, just this one. Just this one.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd catch off guard there.
Yeah. So I first learned about Kevin through social media. And I just thought Kevin had a really great story to tell.
Okay.
We met up. It was in August of 2017. So it's been 4 years of, bringing this project to life. And Kevin and I have become good friends. I think we're good friends, aren't we, Kevin? I think we're pretty good friends.
I would say so.
Well, boys, we're going to get into that. So let's bring the last member of the panel in onto the show. I mean, it's last but certainly not least, the guy with his own story of inspiration, played in the NHL, and today gives back tremendously in the community, helping kids play the game at a higher level. He's also been a mentor for Kevin in the last few years while training him as well. He owns and runs the Aurora Tiger Hockey Club, along with elite training program, JT Prospects. Welcome, Jimmy Thompson. Jimmy, thanks for joining us, and how's it going, my man?
It's great, Michael. I'm excited to be here to see Ryan and Kevin, and I just want to say I had my whole family watching the documentary, and we really, really thought it was great. Really, really special. And I'll say this about Kevin Porter. His work ethic, I've never played with a man in my history of my time playing pro sports that could outwork Kevin Porter. That I'll start with. So he inspires me. Every time I see him, I'm like, how does he do it?
Well, I hope some of your kids are watching tonight because the season starts, I think, October 1st, a little back-to-backer against Stouffville.
That's correct. Thanks for that. Yes.
And how's the team looking this year?
We're really fast and talented, so I'm excited. Different look. We're going to be, very skilled, and we'll be younger. The older, bigger, tougher teams will have to figure it out, but really skilled, fast, and just a real good brand of hockey. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, again, it's a bit of a lead in towards what we're going to talk about tonight. Just talk to us very quickly and briefly about how good this league is today, that OHL league that your kids play in, the junior league. And I mean, it's great value. I mean, I'm putting a little push here too, because as far as entertainment value goes, and the entertainment dollars stretched very thinly these days, it's a great form of entertainment. But on the same note, these kids are pretty good.
They are, Mike. In the OJHL, it's kids that want to go to college. So if you want to play in the OHL, that's one route. Our league is to get kids to Division I schools. So the speed and the competitiveness, like you said, it's changed. I've owned the team for 7 years now, and from the start, there's some big, heavy hockey. Now it's like the NHL. It's all skill and speed. So very exciting. No fighting, which I love. If you fight, you're kicked out. And I don't think we had a fight the last year we played. I don't think we had one, which really I like, because for me, putting your kid in hockey, you don't want the violence. So very good brand of hockey, very affordable too.
And one last question here for you for these kids. Just during your tenure of 7 years, how many kids have moved on to higher levels, playing in the O, or moving on to scholarship levels?
Well, there's many, and I know the Alex Fermentons of the world who's playing in Ottawa, Anthony Romano, who's drafted by Arizona Coyotes, Cam Morrison, who's with Colorado Avalanche. That's the later, but yeah, tons of scholarships.
Terrific. Well, listen, let's get onto the subject at hand. I watched Relentless the other day, and it's on now on demand, I believe. It's a terrific film. So before we get into a little bit further, let's get some background on the subject. So, Kev, like any Canadian kid, you started playing hockey at an early age, advanced through the ranks, but as a teenager, things took a turn for the worst. First with an injury, then a personal tragedy. Maybe walk the listeners through that period of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up in Kitchener, massive hockey town, Kitchener, Waterloo, the whole surrounding area, just a huge, huge hockey haven. And, it was, let's dial it back here. Let's go 1992, right? 1991 to 92, I was playing AA hockey. And, as the season progressed, the team, we weren't doing very well. My Nana was diagnosed with breast cancer for the second time. And in January of 1992, she passed away. 2 months later, my mom was killed in a construction accident in Exeter, Ontario. Yes. That was March 31st. So between then, myself and about 6 other kids were let go from the AA team, bumped down to the single A team. And, that's enough right there to, hit a kid's ego when you're going through puberty, high school, family issues, so on and so forth. And it just turned my world upside down. So, after mom passed away at March 31st, I just put my head down. I focused, and I was bound and determined to make the major midget AAA team the next year, because that was a big feeder team to the Kitchener Rangers. I was absolutely obsessed with making the team, and I did everything in my power to do it. I came into camp. I was about 185 pounds, strong, quick, violent, because that was the brand of hockey back then. It was totally different. And, I had a massive, massive chip on my shoulder, and first tryout game, Chad Turner, right-handed shot. I still remember his name. I can picture it happening, and it happened by the Queen's pitcher in the auditorium. And Chad slashed me on the left hand, and it broke my hand. So there was 3.5, 4 months in a cast, and that was the year hockey essentially finished for me. And then obviously, as the story goes, we picked it up years later. So.
Well, in between then, you became a firefighter, I believe. And was that now you gave up hockey at the loss of your mom and a couple of years, the injury and stuff like that, and became a firefighter. Was that something you always wanted to do, or was the loss of your mom something that set you on that path to help people?
Well, I can remember mom. So one of my favorite show growing up, besides Hockey Night in Canada, was Emergency. So mom would just pluck me down in front of the TV for hours, and I'd watch reruns of Emergency. And of course, Los Angeles County firefighter paramedics, I was just in awe. So after this happened with Nan and Mom, I was trying to find, your purpose. And I wasn't a big university math science guy at the time. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply to paramedic college. I went back to school. I upgraded some marks because, I dropped out of high school in grade 10. I couldn't focus. I was just, all I wanted to do was exercise and take out frustration. So I was very constructive that way, and it kept me out of trouble. Years later, I applied to Conestoga College. I did the paramedic program for 2 years, and then I went back right away and started doing the firefighting. In 2001, I was hired as a paramedic in Peel and York Region, and then in 2003, I was hired by City of Brampton Fire and Emergency Services, where I continue to work as a firefighter to this day. So that's in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, as if the loss of your mom and childhood passion wasn't enough, you suffered through a life-changing moment on the job. Take the listeners through that part of your life.
Well, yeah, it's obviously it's an ultra hazardous job, like both of my jobs in policing alike. People that are in law enforcement and policing, and it was just a routine Sunday morning. I still remember I was at the fire hall. I was working on the treadmill, and we got called out to investigate smoke in an area of Chinguacousy and basically Chinguacousy between Main Street, Brampton, and Steeles. Well, Steeles between Ching and Main. And I went for a drive, and we started to thicker and thicker smoke. Well, then we found the house on fire. We got geared up, buddy check, went in the front door, and then, the floor broke and the two of us fell in. And, we take every precaution possible at every single fire call. There's no routine call, and it would happen to anybody. For me, it was an earth-shattering, life-altering event because of what I had been through with my mom. And, she fell to her death, and now I'm falling, and I'm like, what's the deal here? Like, did my life flash in front of my eyes? And, when I was able to get out with my partner, just a million things went through my mind on the way down, and then crawling out. And I was just like, what am I doing? I love this job dearly, but am I cursed? Is my family cursed? What's going on? So had a lot of time to reflect on that in the ambulance ride to the hospital, and in the days that followed. And, I was always enamored with the game, and I felt like I kind of lost a bit of time with it. Well, a lot of time. And I just decided, I said, life's too short, as if I didn't already know that, but it's just kind of reiterated everything. And I just decided to go for it. So. Well,
no, but I mean, where I was kind of going with that whole point was the fact is the change in your life from that tragedy, first with your mother, now with your own personal consequence of what happened falling through the floor. Obviously, besides the fact life can be taken away from us at any given second, the motivation for you then to come back and try your hand at playing hockey, that must have been, I don't want to get into the spiritual side of it, but you almost feel that the calling was coming, that let's go for it while I can. And I need a new lease on life, and this is it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I really had no intentions in getting out of those careers right away, but it had crossed several times. I'd be on the treadmill at the gym, or I'd be driving, and I would just kind of have a flash of what happened. And, I just, I had to work through some basic skills again. I was always good on my skates, but, if you don't do edge work for a while, you get rusty. I had to basically take my game, and I always done, very physical things. I was in competitive bodybuilding. I did the firefighter combat challenge for 10 years. Just being a firefighter was in shape. So, I had a good athletic structural base, but as you know, if you don't play hockey, you don't play hockey. And I really had to deconstruct everything and build it back up. And I'm still doing that now. I'll never stop doing it, even, when I'm done playing with skills development or whatever. It's a constant reanalyzing and reassessing yourself to improve. So.
Now, how long have you been away from the game at that point? That was around 2010 when you decided to come back and play?
Yeah, it was 2010.
2010. Yeah, so you'd been away from the game for how long at that point?
Well, I started playing when I got in the fire department. We had 7
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, they asked me in the interview, they're like, do you play hockey? Well, it was on my resume, but
Yeah.
they're like, well, we have 7 teams. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, am I joining a hockey club or a fire department? Right. So it's a really, really huge bonus in joining the fire service. At the time, and we had a really, really good A team and B team, and even the Z team was really good. It was a lot of fun, and I just got back out there and kind of got the and then when this happened, when the fall happened in 2010, I'm like, that's it, I'm all in. Like, I don't care what I have to do to make this happen.
Yep. So you hired an off-ice coach, a non-ice coach. You hired an off-ice martial arts instructor and a skating instructor. Actually, Eddie Choi was the on-ice coach, and skating instructor Vanessa Crone, and a martial arts instructor. How did you lay out your training program and come to these decisions to focus on all of that?
Well, man, I've gone through pretty much everyone in the GT, not everyone in the GTA. I actually started out with Adrian Lamonaco at Journey to Excel at the MasterCard Center. And I was with them for about 4 years. And then with my shift work, it was becoming really difficult to get to the on-ice stuff in the evening. Like, I'd work my 12-hour EMS shift, and then I was getting to the rink at like 7, 8 o'clock at night, getting home at 10 and getting home and being like, oh, hi, I'm home. Like, how was your day, right? So I needed to make some adjustments. So I started renting the ice by myself in the mornings at MasterCard at the Ford Performance Center. I'd get on the Leaf pad, the Marley's pad, the pad 4, 1, whatever was available, and started kind of putting myself through the paces. And then that's where I met Eddie. Eddie just mysteriously showed up one day in the stands, and we hit it off. And I had met Vanessa Crone through working with Jim up in Aurora. And that's how Vanessa and I formed the relationship there. And she's been wonderful helping me skate. I've been very fortunate. I've skated with, Elvis Stoico, Barb Underhill, Michelle Moore in Burlington. I've had a really nice variety and been very fortunate to be shown some really cool things from different instructors. And I believe you learn something from everybody. So yeah, that's kind of how that all happened.
And of course, there's an expense involved in all of this, because did you plan to spend so much money and put aside a budget to cover all this? Because what I play beer league hockey and that on a few teams, and that costs a few $1,000 a year. So I can imagine what you're spending for ice and on ice instruction and off ice.
Yeah, well, you know what? Nothing's free for sure. And, I really don't, I try not to look at the financial side of it. I look at it.
Fair enough.
Investing in myself for all kinds of different reasons. Ford Performance Center and Graham Cocking and Sean Philippi, like, they've been wonderful to me, and they've really helped me out.
Yep.
My Muay Thai instructor, Gerald Ching, he's a good family friend. And Eddie, we've managed to form a great partnership and alliance, and we all have certain goals, and we rub off on each other. So, like, I've been super fortunate with the people in my life that have helped me out and continue to do so.
So let's bring Ryan into this. Ryan, you touched on it in the introduction about meeting Ryan, but when did you hear of him and his dream and reality?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
When did you first hear of Kevin and his dream to try and play professional hockey and the training he was doing in these crazy videos he was putting on Facebook and social media?
Yeah, it was on social media that I first saw Kevin. I think it was in LinkedIn. And yeah, I was seeing all these kind of crazy videos, and I think I can't really remember exactly how it worked, but I reached out to him and said, "Hey, do you want to meet up?" And we met like at a coffee shop. This was in August of 2017, and we kind of met, and I thought he was just really interesting. His story was so. His story was so interesting. I just thought it kind of deserved to be told. And one of the things, though, that, when you're in this line of work is you're trying to kind of figure out, like, is this somebody that an audience, a viewer, is going to want to watch for, at that point I thought maybe it was going to be a half-an-hour documentary or, 45 minutes, hour long. I didn't think it was going to be 4 episodes that, that we filmed for 4 years. But you're trying to kind of figure out, like, is this person somebody, like, something that people want to watch. And we kind of started the process. Kevin took a little bit of time, I remember, to kind of figure out if he wanted to do it, because it is a lot. It's I mean, if somebody asked me if I wanted to be on camera in a documentary, I would turn them down, because I'm just I'm not interested in that. We started to kind of get to know each other, and I started coming out, and we filmed quite a bit at first, starting in like September 2017. And at that time, there was some talk maybe of Kevin going to Sweden and playing. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, so we kind of can, go overseas and tell that story. And, I think kind of life got in the way, and that was okay, because it kind of extended things for us. And, I was able to go with Kevin to different camps, without spoiling the documentary for people that haven't seen it. Like, going to an East Coast Hockey League camp in Rapid City was pretty amazing.
Before we get to Ryan, let me interrupt you here. So where I want to go with this is, like, you've been following for 4 years now.
Yeah.
You do this for a living. This is your livelihood. So there's a definite associated cost with doing this. But the other fact you have to keep in mind is he could be cut from all these teams. He could give up. You could be left with lots of footage and half a story. What did you see in him that convinced you to keep going?
Just his drive and his determination. Kevin is he's a different beast. I mean, like Jim had said kind of in the intro, like, I don't know anyone who works as hard as Kevin does. And he's so committed to what he's doing. But the reality of it is, honestly, like, I didn't know if we were going to, like, the one thing I was always trying to figure out along this time and was like, how is this going to end? I don't know how it's going to end, because we're waiting for real life to unfold. And so, things happen in Kevin's life, and I would always tell him, like, okay, I'll come out to your skates here and we'll get some footage of this. But if anything interesting happens, let me know, and I'll come out and film it. Because if I don't film it, then I don't capture it. And so that is kind of gone forever. And I think for me, like, in terms of doing documentaries, there is, we're trying to be as truthful as possible. And yes. So, I kind of consider myself kind of a fly on the wall, and I'm just kind of documenting life as it's going on. And so you need to be at these things. You have to be kind of ready to film at any moment and capture it, because these things only happen once.
Well, that's why the film has an impact, because it is so truthful, and it's reality, it's human nature and all that sort of stuff. And it's got the human interest side to it. So that's what makes it the special film that it is, in my view, anyway. And let's get to Jimmy. And Jimmy, when did you first hear of Kevin? Did you just spot him on Facebook too, like all of us?
Yeah, I believe it was social media. Kevin can remind me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that. And it's just, I know what it takes to make it to the top. And I was a guy that trained really hard, and I was very serious about my training and my off-season training. And as I said at the start, when I watch what Kevin does at his age, and say what you want, I'm 55 now, I still exercise, and the body does change, but he outworked me in my prime time. Like, when I was an NHL hockey player,
yeah,
if I had Kevin's, this, whatever he has inside him, I told you this, very few people I ever witnessed put so much into conditioning, training, different types of training. His work with Eddie Choi is, every morning I'm going,
yeah,
like I'm till this day, and I sit there and I marvel at it. And so, yes, back to your question, Mike, we met that way and we got connected. And Kevin, as you saw in the documentary, would come out with my prospects and inspire me, inspire them. And I'm honored to know him, because I have a great deal of respect for what he does away from the rink. And, he's to me, he's a hero, and he's an inspiration to so many. So I highly recommend everybody watching this documentary. It's interesting. I wanted to do this podcast first, but when I get off, my Aurora Tigers, Kevin, you don't know this, but I'm going to spoil the beans, but they are going to watch your documentary, and then we're going to have you and your wife in and Ryan in, and they're going to do a presentation for you on this documentary. So I'm making it a big team project, our first one of the year, and it's going to be on this documentary and Kevin and Ryan. So
Fantastic.
That's I just think it's amazing. I really do.
Jimmy, I mean, all that aside, why I couldn't agree with you more in what you said, except for the fact I can't hold the party for him. But there must have been a certain element you, because coming from you, you have a guys approach you all the time. Everybody always trying to make it. Did you give it any credence when you actually heard about this guy training as crazy did? I mean, let's face it. I mean, I play beer league hockey, and I got beer league guys that are 60 years plus that still think the dream's alive. And as I said to Kevin off camera, God forbid when they watch this, they're going to be even worse to play against. But, you know, you must have had a little bit of doubt going. And then when you saw it, you must have been shaking your head, as you just said.
Well, like I was real with Kevin, and he had the speed, he had the shot. He didn't have the hockey through. It's like we call it hockey sense, hockey knowledge.
Yes.
You know, looking around, what took me to get to the NHL, and I played in the minors for a long time, and I'll never forget my coach Larry Plow says, until you can think to play ahead of the game. Like, you got to think of play ahead. You know, Gretzky was 2 and Mario was 2 plays ahead. And that's what I was talking to Kevin about, that the everything is there. It's the hockey sense and the hockey knowledge. And all due respect to Kevin, he didn't get the reps or the years of experience that most of us got because of some of his tragedies and injuries and all these sorts of things. So he missed this whole window that most NHL players would obviously have. So that's where I saw Kevin was going to lack to get to that level that we all dreamed about, was the NHL. So, but it wasn't through effort. It just was through, it's like anything, through experience. The more experience you get in something, that's why the Leafs send players to the Marlies, to get the experience and the reps to become a Toronto Maple Leaf.
Well, I want to get into that in a minute with Kev, but first off, I just want the listeners to hear a little bit about your background. I guess maybe, I don't know if we have our heads in sands or wherever we want to use, or adjective do you want to use to describe it. We're led to believe that Canadian hockey players come from middle-class families with strong family bonding, grow up in perfect environments to play hockey, play outdoors, and life is great. But your childhood resembled anything but that. And maybe share that with us.
Well, I'll make it quick because I want this to be about Kevin, but I grew up in a trailer park. I borrowed a pair of my friend's, his father's skates when I was 6. We skated on outdoor ponds. And what was ironic is I put the skates on and I can skate, which is amazing because I teach kids how to skate. And it's difficult just getting a kid to stand up. So when I look back at me putting these skates on. So what happened, Michael, was I went from there to a tryout on an outdoor rink with no equipment. And, I just had a natural ability, and I probably got it from my father. Quickly, my father was going to play in the original 6. They said he was one of the best hockey players in Markham, Ontario, where he was born, but he went to World War II at 17. So probably had some DNA from him. But yeah, I had to get, my dad never drove me to hockey. My mom and dad may have seen me play 6 to 10 times in my whole life, because my dad worked in the oil rig. So I depended on families to take me to the rink. So it was just a big problem for me every year, but the passion and the love is what got me there. So yes, there was great get in the car as a family. I had to find a ride my whole career to hockey. And I just want to say one thing to all the families. And when I made it, I went back and I thanked every one of those families for being such a huge part and taking an interest in me and taking me to hockey.
Well, knowing you like I do, that doesn't surprise me in the least. Kevin, let's come to you now. Like, what was your feeling after hearing Jim's original assessment of you and your game?
Well, you know what? Like, you need to, be honest with yourself always, and you need to hear honest feedback, and that's, I like to think I'm coachable, and I'm like, pardon the pun, but I am just like obsessed and relentless with this. So,
no kidding.
Jim said, I took it in the best way that I could, and I decided I'm just going to keep chipping away at this, and I'm going to have fun with it, because I knew I could do it. It was just a matter of, okay, I just have to reformulate some things, maybe cut out some things. I cut down on a lot of hypertrophy. So, a lot of the video you're seeing also, Michael, is stuff from 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm also, I'm a different player even now. So like I've worked on my skating to the point where my lap time is down to 13.56 seconds. And if you're familiar with, some of the lap times guys are burning, and I've been consistently in that range we're in kind of a holding pattern right now, but it's just something I keep working at, and I'm 100% confident that I can and I will do better. You need those critical elements. You need to be told, and then that's the only way you fix things is if you're made aware of them. So, I'm all good. Just, I love fixing things, and I love working at all the small things. So.
Well, you certainly define that, Kevin. Let me tell you that. But the little bit of film clips I watched you, my criticism would be, and I don't even think it's a criticism, would be that your lack of game experience. I mean, I come back to, I was going to mention this to you before, why you wouldn't have played senior A hockey or intermediate hockey. Get your games taped, send them to the teams, and get the game experience, put some numbers up, all those type of things. Because when it comes down to it, it's like me going to the driving range. I can strike them down the middle, bucket full after bucket full, but put a tree or a pool 50 yards away from me, I can't get the club over my head. So, team management would need to see you compete for a puck, drive to the net, back check, all these type of things. Game awareness, as Jamie pointed out. Why didn't you ever consider going that route to start?
So senior A, I went out for Hamilton Steelhawks I guess 3 winters ago, just before COVID.
Yeah.
And, they were pretty full. I wasn't offered a spot. COVID hit, managed to play a few games in the Federal Hockey League, and then COVID shut it down for the season. So I was trying in vain to get in games. I was actually invited to a VHL tryout in Russia the spring of 2020. And then again in the spring of 2021, but with the world situation and COVID, I wasn't able to get over there. So what I've been trying to do is most, if not all of my drills I do have some implementation of a game-like situation. And my conditioning is just, when you see my videos, the video doesn't lie. My conditioning is top shelf. So, the way I try to look at it, and obviously I've had to do this all much differently than the average hockey guy or girl growing up, is I train after work in the mornings. So sometimes I'm a little bit sleep deprived, and it causes me, what that does though, it causes me to push and push and push. When I train when I'm rested, it's a piece of cake. And if I can go to the rink and work as hard as I do, if I can go to the gym and work as hard as I do with my crazy schedule, what could I do if I was completely rested, playing for a team, and I was contributing, 7 to 12 minutes a period with a 20-minute rest in between? I think I could be ultra effective in any role. Getting those minutes in, that seems to be our hump right now, but I'm not going to stop. So,
I was going to say, let's get into some of the teams you've skated with. Brampton, BC, CHL camp. What was your expectations going in, and how did you feel after? And maybe take it one step further. Once you didn't make the hockey club, did the coaches give you a reason why they cut you? And what were you lacking, or what you needed to work on besides that incurable disease that we all suffer from, AGE?
Yeah, Brampton was always a great experience with Spiros and Colin and Frederick LeMay. I keep in touch with Spiros, and he's doing quite well now. And it was one of those things. Like, there were things I needed to work on. There's no question. Mm-hmm. The first year I went out for the Beast, Mark DeSantis had asked me if I wanted to be an emergency call-up, and I said, well, 100%. I live in Milton at the time, and working in Brampton and Peel Region, I'm always around. So that was a massive bonus for me, and really one of the early catalysts that it gave me that confidence that, like, hey, you know what, like, I can hang with these guys. And I had skated with a lot of the players, like, in summer training, summer camps, and like I was really confident that I could be a positive role model on the ice and off the ice. It never materialized, but nevertheless it kept me going for sure. And then one day I got a Twitter message from Nella Ferrara from the Rapid City Rush, and they had invited me to ECHL camp in Rapid City.
Now, I don't want to give the film away, but Ryan, you follow the path of a teenage kid inspired by Kevin. He looks to be a very average talent, but his drive is tremendous, very similar to Kevin's, which is a very tough thing to do. It's easy to show an elite kid how to glide to the top to get a shot, but for a kid limited in skill and abundance of drive, it's an approach we should all take to try to aspire to. Was this the message you were trying to send featuring this younger guy?
Yeah, and it's also, I saw so many parallels. It's Jeff Kernahan is his name.
Well, I didn't want to give the story away.
Okay, yeah. So he, there were so many bizarre similarities in Kevin's story and Jeff's story, and with Jeff losing his mom, to cancer, not an accident, but losing his mom as a teenager and having to deal with that, and how Kevin has been a part of Jeff's life as he works with Jeff's dad, Jody, as a paramedic. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was a very interesting kind of parallel to kind of show, in some ways maybe what Kevin's journey would have been had he continued as a teenager. Yep. And playing junior and whatnot. And I thought it was an interesting parallel to kind of show that. And it's there's so many similarities in their story. I just thought it was very interesting.
Well, I picked up on that, so your message got across anyway. To a dopey old guy like me, got it. So everybody else got it for sure. Yeah. Now, watching Kevin at the Brampton tryout, age aside, how do you compare, in your view, your honest opinion, with the other players?
In Brampton?
Yeah.
In Brampton, Kevin was great. I mean, the Brampton camp is a free agent camp.
Yep.
So it's not like a main camp invite. So there is a wide range of players there. But we went there 2 years with Kevin, and Kevin had been there before at least once that I'm aware of before I was filming with him. And so there's a really wide range of players. I mean, there's some players that should not be out there, but there are some really, really fantastic players. And I thought Kevin was really up there with them. I think at the time, it's unfortunate they folded. It was so nice to have an East Coast team so close to us that we go watch. But at the time, I think they were saying basically they were going to take 2 people from that free agent camp to the main camp. I never ended up finding out who those people were, but I didn't really care. But it was something where I always thought Kevin had a shot at it for sure. And you can't control these things. I mean, people see certain things in you. It's just like any job, any occupation. Somebody sees something in you, and you get that opportunity. The Rapid City opportunity was an amazing one for Kevin. Like it was such a fun time, even just for myself. Yeah, there's the footage. I mean, because that was really the real deal. I mean, that was an invite to a main camp. It's 2 levels below the NHL. It's pretty incredible. That was one where, as soon as I had heard about that, I was like, oh my God, Kevin, like I need to come. How do I do this? And so we talked with the people there and kind of made it work, and they were really open to us what we were doing. It was a lot of fun.
Now, Jimmy, without putting words in your mouth, my guess you could probably name a few dozen hockey players out of work with higher pedigrees than Kevin. But while you want to be honest with Kevin, I'm looking at this from being more of a consultant and an advisor to Kevin at this point where your friendship has gone. While you want to be honest with him, I'm sure you don't want him to give up on his dream because of what you went through yourself and you see other players go through. But like anything in life, we all need to read the reality compass at some point. It might be pointing to the exit or to another line of work, but we still have to look at it at some point. Do you feel that that's kind of your role working with him?
It was very easy for me to be real with Kevin because I'll tell you why. He is going to be so valuable when he does retire and helps people and helps kids out. And that was my whole point. The energy that he is giving and doing, I just saw him as such a valuable person to come into the industry I work in and teach and coach and give this energy to so many young people who need Kevin. And that's what my whole purpose was I'm not killing the dream. That's not what this is about. And I follow him. I watch him. I continue to get inspired by him. That's not why I wasn't like putting the stamp on it. Okay, enough of this. Come over here. I was being real with them.
Yeah,
and
that's
what
right.
I was saying is the amount of hours he's putting in, imagine what he would be doing with kids that need him and families that need him. I mean, I'm going to tell you this, through COVID, the amount of families I've dealt with just some, just unfortunate situations. And I'm not going to get into all that. Kevin's got his career where he saves lives. That's all. That's why he's a hero. But there's a whole other hero of Kevin Porter that so many families and kids are going to benefit from Kevin when he comes over to this side and becomes this mentor, coach, and bigger than life object, because that's, to me, is NHL. And that's what I was saying in the documentary. It wasn't, I felt it in my heart. Kevin, come over here and start helping these families and kids. And it was passionate for me to tell him that. It wasn't to kill his dream. And I still feel like that today. And, he's going to be so valuable in our society when he does put what he's doing on the ice and in the gym and all these places into so many kids that need him.
But Jimmy, I hear what you're saying, but the thing about it is with his mindset, and I'm sure you're aware of it now, with the stubbornness and the determination to go ahead. It's like trying to tell a golfer, let's use as an example, trying to make it on the big tour. And somebody says to him, and I've heard this conversation before, well, you can always be a club pro, you can give lessons, you can do all these type of things to make it. You don't want to hear that. He doesn't. All he thinks about is Tin Cup if he's thinking that. They've got their mindset in one way, and what they want to do is they want to look for their road, and that road is the only road they know for now. So Speaking of the road you had to travel with a little bit, Kevin, let's get to that part of the equation, and that is Ashley. When you decided to make this a life ambition, you must have laid up some sort of plan out for her, and how'd the conversation go, and did she think you were nuts?
I got to be careful what I say because she's making me right now.
I just heard her laugh.
You know what? Ash has been extremely supportive in all this, and I've to jump on a jet plane and go to Sweden. It was pretty daunting, I guess, for both of us. Excitement and daunting, and she came over at Christmas, and we had a great time and showed her around, and then we came home, and I even brought my hockey gear home to train at Christmas break. But the guys thought I was leaving the team, and then to go back again into the new year, like, it was massive commitment on her part, and even to this day, the training and everything that you have to immerse yourself in to be successful and advance. She's been super supportive. So
now, what about your friends at the fire hall? Anyone try to convince you this was almost an impossible dream, or knowing your character and the way you are, do they just give up?
You know what? I mean, people can say what they want. And, I have a lot of great support networks at the fire station, and my crew's awesome now on A Platoon 207. I love the guys. My paramedic colleagues, they're fantastic. But you know what? I don't worry about what people say. I just do my own thing, and I know what I'm capable of. And if you want to come train, the door's always open. Anyone that wants to talk, they want to come out and train with me. It's always an open door. So, I like to think I'm just too busy and I'm too focused to worry about that at the end of the day.
No, I like that answer, by the way. That's the way to put them in place. But now there's maybe a couple guys that you may have to, answer to a little bit. Now I'm talking about maybe your superiors. When you were laying this plan out for them, what you're going to do, how did they respond, and how'd that conversation all go? I mean, I'm sure they've heard some doozies over the years, but this must have been a first.
Well, I was super fortunate when I went to Sweden. When I spoke to my fire chief at the time, he was amazing, Chief Michael Clark, and he had suggested that I bookend my leave of absence with holiday time to if we made the playoffs, I could stay longer if I wanted to, like, rip around Europe. So I was immensely, fortunate for that meeting and to have that relationship with Michael, and that kind of started the whole ball rolling. And yeah, they've been fantastic. All three of my jobs, like they've been amazing with us. So.
What's the third job, by the way? I got the paramedic and the firefighter. What's the third one?
Oh, sorry. I work for two paramedic services. So I work for
two.
I work for Peel Region Paramedic Service, and then Brampton Fire is my full time.
Okay, perfect. Now let's get to the next part here. How many pro camps have you attended before you landed the opportunity in Port Huron, a city with a long tradition in hockey, particularly in the Old I, which was a pretty tough league, as I'm sure Jimmy Thompson's aware of?
Yeah, well, let's see. So Brampton Beast 3 times, San Francisco Bulls, like the Leafs way back. We went to San Francisco, Reading Royals, which is Philadelphia Flyers, or was at the time. Elmira, oh my goodness, a whole bunch. Yeah, probably 8 to 10. And then, the opportunity came with Port Huron and being not that far away from us, right? It's kind of a doable distance. But with COVID, it just put a big pause on all that stuff. And, even last winter, I would have gone back to play with the guys again, but, you cross the border and then you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that wasn't going to work out too well with work. And we just couldn't make it happen. So.
Now, did you ever hear of any of the teams say if you're only 10 years younger? And if you did, that must have just driven you off the wall.
Yeah, but like I said, at the end of the day, it's like, what's the number? I mean, look at Yager. He's still scoring goals at 41. I'll just say this right now. I'm not comparing myself in any which way, shape, or form to that man. He's unbelievable.
Didn't take it like that.
But I just had to clarify that because people get creative with their thoughts. I don't want to sound cocky, but I'm extremely confident in my abilities right to this day, like right now. And I just kind of in one ear and out the other as far as the age thing goes. And I just keep working. And, if it happens, that's great. And if for some reason it didn't happen, I look at it as a positive, like, what am I building that I can teach players down the road? So this is a pretty well thought out, tactful approach, I like to think, on my part.
Yep.
That it's an insurance plan for me as well. So I know what I'm capable of. If it works out, that's awesome. And I'm also storing ammo for down the road, right? I want to get into player development. That's my passion. And that's the goal down the road.
Well, the guy in the corner of the screen here, I think he's going to be happy to hear that, before this is all said and done. Now, talking about some of these pre-camps you attend, I know the USL Junior League, I don't want to get into all the money kind of stuff, but they charge a lot of money, $300-400 for a couple of games over the weekend and all this kind of stuff. And I would suggest that Jimmy would agree with me that when he's having his camps in Canada, these pre-camps for kids to go, and maybe one or two get picked, as Ryan pointed out, the success rate is low. But I would suggest probably at your time, maybe I'm wrong in this, maybe I'm all wet on it, but I would suggest that some of these camps you've attended, you got a little harder look, because management would resonate a little bit with you in the fact that knowing the odds are stacked against you and you're still willing to come out and give it a go, they'd give you a good hard look, I would think. Am I wrong there?
Well, I'm not too sure. I mean, I think I was older than most of the coaches. Maybe Larry Corville was around my age, who I believe is now a firefighter. So pretty cool for Larry. But it was always just cool, like the people I'd meet, right? Like some of the guys I met, and I have so much fun. I would just met so many players and different athletes. Like, I mean, that's part of the hockey culture, is you meet so many great people. And I would see guys at a camp 1 year, and then I wouldn't see them for 2 years, or I'd end up, like, I remember playing, the first game I went down to Michigan to play with the Prowlers, and I was lined up, and we looked at each other in the eyes and we're like, oh, hey, like, I had gone to many camps with this kid, and he was playing for the opposing team, right? So that was as nice as the conversation got. But it was that way because you'd meet so many different athletes, and you'd see other guys too, like, try to achieve their dreams, and like they'd end up playing for a team. And so it's just a lot of fun, and it's something I cherish. I always will.
So, Kev, let's say you finally land a spot. Are you really going to leave your day job or put it on hold to play for a few $100 a week? I know that's not the reason you're doing this, but still, at some point, and again, the reason I'm looking at that, I'm going to let me take it one step further, because I would think once you reach that stage, what's left for you to accomplish? Because your drive has been to get a shot and make the team. But once you made the team, you've set your goal.
Well, I never stop setting goals. I'm never ever satisfied. I'm always, and I say that, with all due respect to people chasing goals and dreams, I always make sure I'm uncomfortable and I'm never fully happy at the end of my training session. And I'm always looking for something better. And it's not that I'm not happy or content, but it drives me, right? So the guy climbing the ladder is always hungrier than the guy at the top. So the saying goes. I believe that to be true 100%. And I almost the way I look at this and approach this, Mike, is a little bit of, I don't know if it's like just deferred gratification, or I tease myself, right? Like I put myself in a situation where like I just force myself because I just want to keep growing and keep getting better and pushing myself to do bigger and better things. And like I said, that will translate down the road to teaching, instruction, coaching, whatever comes my way hockey wise. And it's a translatable skill, right? So translate in a lot of different areas of your life. And that's just how I roll.
Well, I was going to say this. Now, there's another team you're dealing with, and the captain of the team, I think her name is Ashley. There's a family to be had somewhere down the road. There's a family life you're dealing with. The clock's ticking. So there's got to be that added, I don't want to say burden, but additional stress on top of the fact also from looking at, and everybody can hear your character coming through loud and clear in this podcast, that you have no time frame to say enough is enough no matter what. Now, the NHL and the AHL, can safely say is probably not going to happen. The ECHL is becoming more of a feeder league to the AHL as the NHL gets younger by the year, and these spots get tougher to hold. Does it ever cross your mind that the window's closing pretty quickly?
Well, yeah, I'm obviously fully aware of that, and I think that's why I do train so hard. I had a nice conversation a few days ago with some gentlemen, and with regards to a tryout, and I'm just waiting to hear back. So, either way, they said they'll be, get a hold of me. So I just keep pushing and kind of pretend that never happened and that I'm, still gunning for something, and which I am.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, because the fact is, there's less and less options for these kids, and those bloody kids always getting away, the young good players. If this was a number of years ago, to hone their skills as pros, the locker room stalls in ECHL dressing rooms are like real estate in Toronto. They're only going to get more valuable as the days go by. So those spots in those rosters are primo and will be only become more so. So, the clock's ticking, as we just touched on, but your drive, at some point you've got to take. I don't know if you guys know the story of Doug Smith. He's the guy, one of Paul Pascal's favorite here. He's a guy who wanted to make a pro team as an enforcer. He learned to skate at 19 and eventually fought his way into a few ECHL and ACHL games, AHL games. He was the inspiration for the movie Goon. He wanted to be called a Goon. But he was told numerous times there's no way, give up. But he persistently kept working on his game, found it motivated to continue when family, friends, etc. are the most negative. Do you feel that way as well?
You know what? Like I said, I've been very fortunate for people in my life, both at home and at work, that support me. And I have my own kind of, support. I have people that I look up to. I had past role models or people, movies. Rocky IV is my favorite movie, right? So, I look at that, and, after my mom passed away, the second I was notified that she passed away, I went and watched a clip from Rocky IV. So, that really resonates with me. And I have kind of my own little spiritual box, if you will, that I can kind of go into and focus on, what I need to do to try to make this happen. Like I said, if I'm operating the way I am after a 24-hour fire shift or a night shift at ambulance, I like to think, what can I contribute 7 to 10, 12 minutes a period? That's if your coach likes you and you're doing everything right.
That's exactly right.
Right. I keep it real simple, real savage, fast, hard, intense, but smart. right? We don't like penalties. That's killed us in the past. So, you know, if given an opportunity, that's kind of how I would approach it, and suck up all the knowledge I can get, you know, because I just love it.
Well, let's take it one step further here. Jimmy, give the listeners an idea of how hard it. I mean, everybody isn't aware, but just maybe from your perspective and the decision you made to be an enforcer to get a shot, how tough it really is to make it. I mean, maybe people just don't understand it.
Well, it's a good question, Mike. I was a goal scorer growing up. Like I scored, you know, I was an offensive player. And when you mentioned the word enforcer, I didn't ask for that. And that just, you know, I grew up with protective instincts and had older brothers, as we talked about. And at the end of the day, to make the NHL is a lot of, unless you're obviously Crosby or Gretzky or Wendell Clark and some of these guys who are, you know, destined to go there. For guys like me, you had to have the work ethic. You had to have, you know, obviously some hockey sense, and you had to have some people in your corner. And I give Tommy Webster in LA, the late Tommy Webster, he wanted me on his hockey team. And I'll go back to the Toronto Marlboros. Tom Martin, Frank Pinella wanted to cut me. And if he cut me, I probably would have went back to Edmonton, and who knows what would have happened in my life, you know. But these guys believed in me. They saw something in me, and they gave me an opportunity. And without those individuals, you know, let me in the door. Once I got in there, I wasn't getting out, kind of Kevin's mentality. And he's just trying to get in the door. So to make it to the NHL, that's why less than 1%, I believe, make it. And, you know, it was a long journey and very, very rewarding when I finally got there.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you're being a little bit modest. So I want to say this about you. On our podcast, a shameless plug, Squid and the Ultimate Leaf fan, you guys, if you want to tune in at some point, we've had enforcers on, and the common concern amongst most, it's not losing the fight that bothers them so much, but most letting their teammates down, or they felt they let their teammates down, in a sense, losing face around them. That can be a powerful presence overhanging a player's head. Would you agree with that, Jimmy?
Well, it was what, you know, was why I, you know, hated my role. I hated it. I didn't like fighting. I didn't want to fight. And I did it because Brian Murray, the late Brian Murray, who I have a great deal of respect for, was my first NHL coach. And he told me, you know, I had 200 penalty minutes in the American Hockey League as a rookie. He said, if you want to make our team, you got to fight more. And I'm thinking, fight more? The next year I had 41 fights. And I can only say to you that, you know, just that whole role of the anxiety, the sleepless nights, you know, I really, really struggled to think I got to go into Detroit with Bob Probert and Joey Kosher there, and then to Chicago with Mike Peluso and, you know, Stu Grimson. And this, I'm not 6'5" and 6'6" like some of these guys. I had depended on smarts and strength, but it was a very, very tough time in my life. Here I am living my dream out, and I was living this anxiety and really unhappy life, which drove me to a lot of my problems later in life.
Well, Kevin, in your case, though, even though you're doing this for yourself, do you ever feel that there may be other guys in your position who aren't as brave as you to give it a shot, but your determination is a motivational tool for them, and if you fail, you'd be letting one of them down, not only yourself?
No, I'm flattered you would say that, you know, I could be a role model in that sense. And
absolutely, you could be. You are.
I just look at it too as, you know, control what you can control, right? So, you know, I control what I eat. I control to some extent how much I sleep and rest and recovery. I control how I train, how diligent, what I do, who I seek out. You know, my wife and I, we were in California several times the last 2 years, and you know, when I was out there, I needed to train. So I started training with Todd Medina, who's a former UFC Russian Valley Tudo and boxing champion. And, you know, I've been training with Todd, you know, also on the side for 2 years, honing, you know, boxing, grappling skills. And so, you know, the way I look at it is no excuses, right? And because everyone has one, no one cares, just be better. I just want results. So, you know, that's really what it comes down to. And you know, it might sound a little hard-headed and whatever, but it's how you have to be sometimes to get the job done, and that's just how it is.
Jim, you did what it took to get there. You paid a price. I got 2 questions for you here. What, or was there a defining moment knowing you made it? Was it a certain event, something a teammate said, or a response from the bench, a coach or something that gave you that little bit of gratification? And secondly, would you do it again knowing the consequences that followed?
I think your first game, and you guys know this story. I covered Merrill Lemieux my first game, so that's I don't know if that says I made it. It was my first game. I think for an NHL player, in my situation, when David Poyle told me to find a house, like when you're told to find an apartment or a house, you know that you're staying. And that I'll never forget it when I got called in and he said, "Great job. You've made the opening night roster. You can go find yourself an apartment or what have you." So that I'll never forget. That was something that I hadn't experienced before because, like I said, I spent first 2 years in the minors and that. Would I do it again? Yes, I would. And this, I don't judge. I am who I am. I made a lot of good things happen. I made a lot of mistakes. And, that lawsuit that they had for, they're going after the NHL for concussions and that, I didn't want to be part of that, even though I suffered 8 of them. Just because the NHL gave me who I am today. And I say this, and this is where I'll go back to Kevin Porter. The NHL wasn't my calling, Michael. Yeah. My calling was now to help people. And I really believe that the NHL just gives me more, maybe credibility or whatever. But, my real love and passion, is what I do now. And I'm still playing hockey like Kevin. I'm still involved. I'm doing all these things with the Roar Tigers and that. But, I just believe that was the biggest reward I got, was to live out my dream. And there was no way I would change anything. All the crazy things I did and the stupid stuff I did and the bad decisions I made, that's what made me today. It really is what made me today. And, people say, well, why you were a goal scorer? I only played 115 games and I had many, many injuries, 12 operations. So I was injured a lot. But again, I wouldn't change anything to play one more game or one less game. I am who I am and I did what I did.
Well, I certainly wasn't surprised by that answer, but I had to ask anyway. Now, Jimmy, one of the low points of going through what you have, turning things around, making a positive impact, changing lives, because that's what you do every time a kid steps on the ice with you to work or play for you. But the calling out by Don Cherry must have been an emotional setback.
It was, it was. Under the circumstances where I was that night, I was at a sick kids function with the Primo brothers and Kerry Goulet, and we were downtown in a restaurant when it happened. And what happened with that? I spoke the truth. I spoke how I felt. When you look at how many enforcers have died, whether it's through overdose, suicide, what have you, and I look at that span of, the last 10, 15 years, there's been no goal scorers. There's been, it's all been guys like me. And I could have been a part of that list very easily. But the players in the league and former players who came after me. And I remember being on Michael Landsberg's Off the Record, and Kelly Chase was on there. And I had no idea I was being set up. But we got on there and he came after me. Like, how dare you? This is this. And I just calmly told him it's my feelings, and knuckles against the brain is not as we're finding out with CTE and all these different things. And my comparison was both of my parents smoked their whole lives and they both died before 70 of cancer. So we find out that science will tell us there's certain things that aren't good for us. And as you guys know, the history, you could smoke in movie theaters, restaurants, on airplanes. Well, that's all gone now. So bare knuckles to somebody's brain, these young kids' brain, to me made no sense. And that's what my whole thing was, along with what I lived with, the anxiety and the addiction. I was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night before a game just because I was terrified in my own skin to go into a rink to meet up with Tony Twister, one of these guys that could kill you. Right. So anyway,
yes, absolutely.
long about answer, but yeah, it was very it went on for a long time there, and it was emotional for sure.
Well, there was an amicable resolution with Cherry at the end, finally, wasn't there?
Well, there was, and sadly, he wouldn't apologize. It was Stu Grimson and Chris Nyland and myself, and they didn't say anything. They got dragged into it somehow, and I don't even know. But Stu was a lawyer, and we had asked for an apology because he called us, some names on TV.
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I'm not apologizing to these guys. I meant what I said." Then 2 weeks later, he ended up apologizing on TV on Hockey Night in Canada, and that was it. So, Don, I'll tell you one thing Don did for me after that. We hadn't spoke. I wrote him a letter. He didn't respond to it, but my wife and I brought all the Humboldt people. Mike, you know this story. We brought all the Humboldt people down to Aurora and took them to a Leaf game. Don was busy, and his wife, Luba, text or emailed me at 11:58 at night to say he changed his plans. Be at the Hockey Hall of Fame with all your people tomorrow at 2:00. And wow, what a thing by Mr. Canada, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, it went from one extreme to the other, and that's why hockey people are the best in the business, and no argument there. Now, Kevin, not to maybe the degree that Jimmy went through, but have you experienced a brutally frank or negative pushback throughout your journey?
Yeah, I mean, several. But like I said, and we'll just circle back to what we talked about before, and you remain confident. I know how hard I'm working.
Yep.
I trust my coaches and my trainers, and I feel like I have some of the best people to learn from. I mean, I've been on the ice with some real wonderful people in Toronto as well, and been offered some great pointers and that I'll never forget. And I just try to, I just kind of take it lightly and move ahead, forge ahead. And, I like to look at it. If you did end up working in a big hockey market, whether you're a player, skills coach, GM, president, you're going to feel the heat sometimes. So how do you learn how to deal with it and push ahead? I mean, Toronto, it's the ultimate hockey market as far as I'm concerned. So how you deal with things on the small level kind of dictates how you're going to deal with them on the big level. So you've got to learn just to, shake it off and move on. So, and just smile and have fun and, know what you have at your disposal
Yep.
and what you're willing to do to achieve the goal. So.
Well, speaking of which, what would be your defining moment if you accomplished your dream or your goal, your first goal? There'd be many after that, I'm sure, but the first one.
Getting to Rapid City was a real nice test for me because it affirmed that I was doing a lot of things right. So I was the last guy cut on the Saturday before I came home in the Sunday morning. And I was excited to get home and get back to the MasterCard Center, Ford Performance Center. I didn't look at it as a detriment at all. I knew it was going to be tough, especially when more guys start showing up on a Wednesday that were traded for in the off season. And I know hockey's a business and that's just how it is sometimes. And there were some things I needed to work on. And, I just looked at it as a massive learning experience. So that was probably one of the amazing moments I've had so far in Sweden. When I was in Sweden, I got nasal cellulitis. And I think I told Jim about this, but I got nasal cellulitis the first week I got to Sweden, and I was admitted to hospital overnight, IVs and everything. The next day, we had our first game in this little town just by Mora, and I ended up scoring my first goal. I mean, I literally got out of the hospital, drove my car back to the little town. We carpooled to the arena, and I managed to score my first goal in Sweden that night. So, you know what? To me, it's just about battling through all these little things and small victories, and having fun along the way. I don't think any one is more important than another, but they allow you to, evolve and overcome and move on to bigger and better things. And, I do have an ultimate goal in mind that I'm just going to keep to myself for now, if you don't mind. And
that's fair enough.
We're getting close. So.
Well, let's switch gears then. Without giving the story away, think of this as a blank screen at the end of Sopranos. So, Ryan, how does the story, in your view, end for Kevin?
Do you mean like after the last episode, or?
Well, it's the blank screen of The Sopranos. What happened? Like the new movie's coming out. So, what's your vision of how this should end?
Well, that's not up to me. That's up to Kevin.
But how would you like to see it? You're following. You know him better. You know him as well as anybody does, and watched everything he's gone through and what he does. What would be your defining moment for him, following him with the camera? Scoring 3 goals and being first star of a game?
No, I think for Kevin, it's for Kevin to be comfortable with himself and happy with his journey. And once he is there and he's figured that out for himself, to figure out what's next for him. But that's up to Kevin. Like for me, like I've said from the beginning, for me, it's just following Kevin's journey and trying to kind of show him for who he is, and show all of these kind of cool things that he's done. And so, yeah, I really just think Kevin needs to find that within himself, and he'll figure things out in time. I don't think Kevin is probably there yet, but someday he will be, and I think he can be proud of everything that he's done once he gets there.
That's spoken like a true professional, by the way. Skate around. You should now, Ryan. If this doesn't work out in the film side, you can go be a politician. By the way, now.
My God, please no.
Well, actually, look at your competition, Jimmy. For you now, how do you think? Let's get your view. How do you think the story is going to end for Kevin? I'm not going to try and put you on the spot, but as a coach, mentor, and instructor, you deal with younger versions of Kevin every day, minus the drive, of course. But outside of your selfish needs of having him work with you one day, where do you see it ending for him? What would be the pinnacle for him?
I want Kevin to realize his dream, play a full season of pro hockey, and be, just be at peace for what he's put all this work into. And, I hope for him, I pray for him that he gets to realize what I realized. And it doesn't matter if you're in the NHL, all these different leagues. Playing a year of hockey at the pro level is just an unbelievable experience. And I wish that for him. And one thing I'll say, whether you're 42 or 46, what does it matter, right? Yeah. And if he, which I'm sure Eddie and Vanessa and the people he's been working with have him ready to go. And I would love to see him 1 year, get what he wants to get and take it from there. But he deserves it. He definitely deserves it.
I couldn't agree more with you. Now, Jimmy, you're evaluating Kevin at JT Prospects today. What would you say to him?
Think of play ahead. See the ice. Right? Go to the net. Kevin's a player like a Zach Hyman. He's got to go to the front of the net to create havoc, and that's where the puck comes. So he's not going to blow down the wing in pro hockey and rip one by a guy at that level 1 out of 50 times. That's hard for pros to do. But one place that you can make it happen is go to the net, get cross-check, get penalties drawn for your hockey team to get power plays, be that Brad Marchand type of player, get under people's skin, and let everybody know you're in the building. But my advice is get to the net, Kevin, and create havoc.
Ryan, following him around, let's see if we get an answer to this time. You must have spoke to some people around the rinks as you were filming him. What kind of comments were you getting back as they would look at you with a camera? You obviously would tell some people what you were doing, or maybe you didn't. What was kind of the consensus on him as he went to some of the different scenes, and maybe some of the positive feedback you heard from him on him?
Yeah, I think everyone's really interested in Kevin, just in why he's doing it. And I think people see the drive in him, and the fact that, if I would have met Kevin at first and I was like, oh, this guy's a complete joke, like this is a pipe dream, it's not going to happen, I wouldn't have made the film, because I'm not interested in making fun of somebody or doing, something like that. But yeah, people were really, like, there's a lot of haters. I'm going to be totally honest. And Kevin knows this, right? Like, there are people that comment on social media with him, and there's people that think it's a big joke. But there's a lot of people that think what Kevin's doing is really cool. And, even like in talking with David Ling, everyone knows who Kevin is. If you are involved in hockey in any kind of way and you're on social media, you know who Kevin is.
Yep.
And a lot of people are very quick to, put him down, not to his face, obviously, right? Because
Yeah, of course.
but, people, keyboard warriors, and people will say things behind your back. There's a lot of people that are like that, but there's also a lot of people that are like, wow, like I'm his age and I can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of respect in that kind of regard. Everyone was really positive about the story. I mean, when we went down to Port Huron, Joe Pace Jr. was the GM / coach / player on the team, which I thought was amazing. That was such a cool experience, actually, to be there. He was really he was so supportive of Kevin. He would talk about the social media posts and how crazy what he was doing was, and how skilled he was. And, he had talked to me a lot about Frank Littlejohn, who's also in the documentary, and how old Frank was when he came and played in Port Huron. I mean, Kevin was older. And you don't know that by looking at Kevin. Like, Kevin does not look his age. He doesn't act his age. I don't know how he does what he does at his age, because I'm not Kevin's age and I can't do that.
Not many guys can.
I mean, Kevin is really, I say this in the nicest possible way. I mean, he's a freak of nature. From a physical perspective, Kevin is a freak of nature. And I don't know anybody else that is his age that has the kind of physical capacity that Kevin does. And also Kevin doesn't really seem to get injured, right? Like, he is, Kevin doesn't talk a lot about aches and pains. Like, he just does this. And it's just part of, I mean, obviously, like with the hockey stuff, taking that kind of break that he had and he was bodybuilding, obviously he is a physical specimen. But hockey's a different kind of sport, right? Than bodybuilding.
Yes.
So, I think it's pretty tremendous what he's been able to do. There's a lot of people that are just really surprised at how old Kevin is. It still surprises me, and I gotta say, like.
Well, let me ask you this, Ryan: does the camera keep rolling when Kevin stops, attains his goal, but stays in the game in some capacity?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open. Like, I've told Kevin this. We've talked a lot about this. Like, we had to kind of end the series for now with this, and I said, I'm open to doing more. Right now, in the current situation that we're in, just with the in the world with the pandemic, it is very difficult to film.
Yeah.
Had we, if luckily we were done the majority of our filming before the pandemic had started. There was still actually quite a bit of stuff we had to film afterwards, but we were able to do that. Right now, it'd be really restrictive to do it. But whenever this ends, hopefully this ends, I would definitely be interested in continuing to film, and keep telling Kevin's story, because I don't think Kevin's story, like I said, I don't think Kevin's story is really over.
Well, no, I can't get into it.
Yeah, like, I think there's still some potential there, and Kevin and I have talked about some other stuff that we can do as well, and we just figure that out in time. But it's up to Kevin, right? Like, his story will be over when the playing side is going to be over at some point. I mean, or maybe it won't be. I don't know. Maybe he'll just keep going. Maybe he'll be like
that, Ryan. You never know.
Yeah.
Well, now, Kevin, here's another side question here. We just got a few minutes, and we're going to, we're going to try and tighten this up a little bit here. But Kevin, do people approach you for guidance because of the tragic events that have happened to you in your drive to set this goal that you put in front of you, that may give them some balance in the void created by whatever happened to them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've received various messages over the years, different situations that kids are in, either, financially trying to get into hockey. What can I do? What can I do skating? Guys and girls will send me clips of, I'm working on skating. How do I do this better? How do I do that better? I mean, I try to help as best as I can. I'm not a certified coach or a professional, obviously, in any of those fields. I try to relay what I've been taught by some of the greatest, hockey minds around, that I've been fortunate enough to do some work with. And I try to give back what I can. I try to give. You look at hockey, and then I'll touch a little bit on the recovery processes too. So, you guys see me training and training and training and training, but you have to treat your body like a helicopter. An hour of flight, 2 hours of maintenance. So every week I'm at massage. I'm at physio to get touched up to make sure everything's working good. I'm at the chiropractor. I have a sports psychologist that I see, Jeff Chamberlain. All these things work in conjunction. This isn't like a one-trick thing where I think I'll go to the rink a couple times this week and shoot some pucks. Like I'm all in 100%, and nothing takes a backseat. Everything is first class, like 100% go, go, go. Like I don't skimp on anything. So that's the type of attitude I try to instill in people. And when I tell them what they need to do, I'm very quick to tell someone you need to see a skating coach. I had a kid out with me a couple of weeks ago that, I said you need to get your skates profiled, and got his skates profiled. It helped a bit, but not enough. So we need to work on just little things that I've been fortunate to be educated on. I try to pass, what I can on, and it's a nice feeling. So
fantastic. Jimmy, your thoughts on how you'd like to see it end for Kevin? We touched on it already, but just some final thoughts.
I want to see Kevin be the next guru, mentor, helping. As I said, I want him to come in to, live out his dream, but then come over to this side and really be an inspiration for so many people, and bring all that energy and love over to so many families that need him and children. So that's what I'm waiting for. I quietly sit back and know that this man will touch so many lives. He already is, but in a different way.
Well, I was going to say, the way this guy's driven, anything is possible. Listen, he could be the next John Cooper. Went from being a lawyer to a two-time Stanley Cup champion, now coaching Team Canada at the Olympics. So there's no bar set high enough that this guy can't get over. So before we hear from you, Kevin, my comments, if I so boldly can say, well, I'm running the show, so I'll talk. My comment was, no matter what you do moving forward, lift your head high, my friend, because you had the courage to go for it and still going for it. And you are all in. Complete admiration for that coming from me, and I'm from thousands of guys just like us. And I can tell you that wholeheartedly. And I'll tell you what, all that aside, you've got a very fulfilling life to begin with, patient wife. And by the way, you save lives for a living. So you're doing something pretty good already. So that's not too shabby. Now, if that isn't enough for you, let me just say, when all this kind of goes to the side, I've got a spot for you on our Markham men's tournament hockey team. Okay. Let me be the first.
Well,
Now let's hear from you, Kev.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And, I just, like I said, I have more than a few things left that I'd like to attain, that I'm going to attain. And, like I said, even tomorrow, it'll just, I work tomorrow morning on the ambulance, and we'll be at the gym tomorrow night. So, it's just a regimen, a daily, I don't like to say grind. People use the word grind a lot, but to me, it's pure enjoyment. It's not a grind, or why would you do it? Right. So, figure of speech that people use, but I like to look at it as just, it's a passion. So.
Fantastic. Well, guys, that's it. Wonderful people out there that are watching. If you haven't seen the documentary, it's a must see. You got to have a look at this one, and it's definitely worth it. If it doesn't make you want to go and do something physically after you watch this guy for 5 minutes, then you're not human. Let me tell you that. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. And again, until next time.
Thanks, guys. Great time.
Great seeing everybody.